Numbers. We all got them in our phone numbers, our birthdays, our passwords after the angry red text tells you to put in a random digit unless you just want to invite the hackers in. Numbers are so widespread these days that they're even being taught in schools. They're a beloved part of culture, popular and otherwise, but one common complaint is that later introductions to the series were both too complicated and too derivative. So I wanted to go back to the early days of numbers and put together a top 10 list of positive integers between 1 and 10 inclusive. Coming in at the bottom of our list is the number 10. Now I feel like I should point out that 10 isn't a bad number. It's plenty useful for a lot of mathematical processes. Unfortunately, nobody likes math, and if you do, your opinion doesn't count. I just feel like 10 is trying too hard. It has this smug aura of, oh, I'm simply too good to be contained within a single digit, when in reality it's just a poser of a 1 that's trying to sneak its friend 0 into the movies. I see straight through your little disguise, 10. Last place for you. At the 9th spot on today's list, we have the number 9. 9 isn't quite strong enough to be higher up on this list, but already its improvements over 10 are pretty clear. It's a single digit, it has more visual interest than just a line or a circle, but it's still simple enough that even a child can write it in a decipherable manner. Remember how I just said nobody likes math? Ignore that, because I really like how when you multiply 9 by any of the other numbers on this list, its digits will sum to be 9. A bit of a niche flex, but more power to you, 9. 9, very strong, but just not quite enough to get higher on this list. What can I say? Competition is stiff. 8 just feels like an 8 to me. Number 7, the number 2. 2 is a very solid number. I know we're talking about integers here, but when you divide a whole number by 2, you get a whole number half the time, and a half the other half. And I have to say, of the fractions, halves are probably the cleanest and nicest to work with. That being said, I think 2 is just a little too easy, because I see it everywhere. Everything comes in 2s. Eyes, feet, vampire fangs, twins, cherries, suns on Tatooine. People really double down on putting things in pairs, and it gets old after a while. Think about it. If I stopped the video right now to recite The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, you'd probably think I'm trying way too hard to be dark and mysterious, but you'd at least sit through it. If I did that 2 times, you'd get annoyed and skip ahead or leave the video. 2 is where we draw the line. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So with our combined shame, 2 is able to nab a number 7 spot on this list. Our 5th best positive integer between 1 and 10 inclusive is the number 4. I actually really like 4. There are a lot of cool things about it. It's the only number that's socially acceptable to scream while golfing, and both ways of writing it look pretty cool, albeit a little bit angular. 4-leaf clovers are also associated with good luck, and I just think it's really cool that they exist in defiance of all those lame conformist 3-leaf clovers. Unfortunately, there are some things working against 4. In actually doing math, 4 is a bit of a pain to work with compared to some of the other entries on this list, and 4's association with death in some cultures, a little spooky for me, so I was too scared to put this number any higher than a 5. Oh, crap, I just realized I skipped 6 parts. Sorry about that. My choice for this one is 5. Counting by 5s is really fun, and its shape looks cool in theory, but is surprisingly hard to write in a way that looks aesthetically pleasing. It just seems like unless you have really good handwriting, it's always a little bit off and never quite lives up to your expectations. That's really frustrating to me, so I just couldn't rank it any higher. Still solid though, which is why it made it to 6th. So getting back on track, my 4th place choice may come as a bit of surprise to some of you, but I actually picked the number 1 here. 1 is a classic, and for many people, it was their introduction to the vast world of positive integers between 1 and 10 inclusive. It's hard to get more simple than 1, and in some ways that's a good thing. It's so ubiquitous that 1 is featured in every single number base, even binary, which is notorious for being choosy about which numbers get in. It's intuitive to work with, and without a 1, every number system falls apart. At the same time, that simplicity can be a drawback. The design is not very inspired. It's literally just a line, which can be confused with a lowercase l, capital I, or Flat Stanley in profile. They did introduce a couple visual variants to combat this issue, but one looks almost the same, except it can also be confused with a 7, and the other one, even though it's my variant of choice, looks pretty ugly and can be confused with a 2 if your handwriting is truly awful. So while one has a lot going for it, the basic and ambiguous design holds it back from beating out any of the top 3 entries. Speaking of the top 3, at spot number 3, we have the number 3. There's just something engraved in human consciousness to feel satisfied when things come in trios. The rule of 3s is prevalent throughout media, from fairy tales to Pokemon. Look at this little mole thing. Isn't it a cool, funky little guy? Okay, now we need to come up with a better version for it to evolve into. What makes this better? What if there was a Diglett, but 3 of them? There are plenty of specific things that are cool about 3 too. It has an inviting shape, it's both half of 6 and half an 8, and it rhymes with tree. Well-earned 3rd place. This late in the list, I was really struggling to decide which positive integers between 1 and 10 inclusive to rank where. It was a difficult decision, but in the end, I decided to give the 2nd place slot to the number 6. Okay, so you know 9, right? I said it was a really solid option, but imagine you took a 9 and flipped it upside down. Hands down, coolest thing I've ever seen. The absolute creative genius of repurposing an entire numbers design and yet altering it so fundamentally that it fulfills a completely different purpose within the positive integer canon, it's just astonishing. If I met the person who came up with that idea, I would buy them a 6 cinnamon rolls. There are just so many good things to say about 6. It's a number that strikes the perfect balance between complexity and elegance. The progression of multiples of 6 is surprisingly satisfying, and the fortune cookie I got the other day told me my lucky number was 6. I felt lucky just to see the number 6 grace my eyes. At this point, you're probably wondering, what could possibly beat such an incredible number as 6? But before we get to the number 1 selection, I want to shout out an honorable mention that didn't quite make the cut to be included in this list. 2 billion. 2 billion is a cool number because it's really big and fun to say out loud. But I couldn't include this in the list because despite being a positive integer, it was unfortunately not between 1 and 10 inclusive. Now, without further ado, to unveil the 1st place choice, for those of you who've been keeping track, you might already know the final positive integer between 1 and 10 inclusive that we have on our list today. That's right, coming in as the best positive integer between 1 and 10 inclusive of all time is the number 6. Again, when I looked at 6, I just thought, man, 6 is too good to have only a single spot on this list. It deserves at least the top 2 slots. It took a lot of restraint to not just fill the whole list with the number 6. In fact, it took me 6 restraint. That's just how good it is. When I grow up, I hope to one day be an integer between 1 and 10 inclusive as good as 6 is. So this has been my list of the top 10 positive integers between 1 and 10 inclusive. Let me know in the comments that you agreed with all of my rankings, and stay tuned for my next video where I look at the top 10 negative integers between -1 and -11 exclusive.